for Joseph Baba Ifa. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Ofun Ogbe, okiti baba ni pekong, adifa fun la balorong. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2026. Coming at you with La Letra Del Año from La Commission. Miguel Febles, Ofun Ogbe. Phil, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2026. We made it.
We made it.
We did it.
We're
here, man. So happy to be here.
Likewise.
Happy we are back live in front of everybody. If you are in the chat, say what's up. It's been a little bit since we've been live with everybody. I know our members get it, so this is literally for everybody. So, hey, say hi. Say where you're watching from. I know our audience is all over the world, so say hi, say what's up, say all that jazz. But before we even get started, Joseph.
Yes, sir.
We got to pay some bills here.
Okay.
Right?
So, I thought they were, I was a little nervous.
Right? No, guys, if you are not a member, it's really easy. Right on this video, just click that button. It says join our membership program. It's real simple. We have separate tiers. Each membership can get you extra episodes, discounts on merch, early releases to the podcast. So you'll get them ahead of time.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever we drop them. And classes and courses. But we got a special message about some events that you guys are going to be having over the summer and later on this year that's just available for you guys tonight.
Oh, exciting stuff. Absolutely. Guys, so we have the workshops coming up in Atlanta and New York in these upcoming months. But during this live, we are going to give you a coupon special to get $100 off, but you have to get in there now. So Phil is going to be posting that and mentioning it periodically.
I have it pinned.
Fabulous.
It's pinned in the comments. So yeah, there we go.
Can't wait to go to Atlanta and New York and replicate all the success we had here in Orlando. Really productive time, lovely time where we were able to network and learn Ifa together over that 48-hour span. So definitely take full advantage, and it's a pleasure to be back on the lives, man. I enjoy these so much. La Letra Del Año is a hot topic, especially knowing which one to follow, right? All of them are great. But as far as the way we do it, or the way I was trained, being that one of our elders, Beto Berosung, was one of the gentlemen there when, it started happening in the 80s and whatnot, and even beforehand, but I make reference to the photo. He's actually standing near Miguel Febles in the photo, a couple people to the right. He's actually standing next to Luciano Canto Iboru, who's sitting next to Miguel Febles Odika, who I believe right between and behind both of them is Lázaro Huerta Iboru, who is the gentleman who still runs La Letra Del Año over there in La Casona. I know a couple of the gentlemen that actually worked to be able to pull it, all gentlemen, all prepared, knowledgeable guys, ethical guys. So it's the one that we interpret, even though all of them are great.
Yep, and I know a lot of people have already been chatting, so we will be putting up the comments as soon as we get them. But also, since this is a live with everybody, sometimes it does get a little crazy here.
Oh, yeah.
But if you definitely want your comment to be seen ahead of time, super chats are welcome. So we do have that, but I do got to show some love.
Baba knows the way.
Oh, man, we got one already. Oh, Beniel, thank you, my brother. Iboru boy, a happy new year. Thank you so much. You're too kind.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, so guys, with the super chats, definitely take advantage of them so we can answer your questions. If you could gear the questions towards La Letra Del Año, that would be most productive so we don't go too far off track, even though we definitely want to take advantage of being able to be together like this. But we'll kick off with some patakis. The Odu of Ofun Ogbe from the Casona comes with the reigning Orisha of Ogun, and the accompanying Orisha is Oya, so we'll be focusing on them quite a bit. And then apart from that, the prophecy was that of Ayewo Ofo, right, or a negativity of loss or giving too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what aspects of Ofun Ogbe embodied and encompassed these concepts so we know what to avoid this year, 2026. So the first prayer that I threw there from Ofun Ogbe, which is the most commonplace one within the Lukumi practice, speaks of the war between the butterfly and the moth. So both of them go through their transformation process, right? But obviously they look very different. The butterfly was known for being flashy, a little arrogant, a little disorganized. He was kind of all over the place, a little flamboyant. And then the moth was a little more reserved and stoic, really didn't bother nobody, stuck to himself and all these different things. And the butterfly wanted the moth to be like him. But the moth was like, no, I'm good here. You know, they both went for divination. Ofun Ogbe was revealed for both of them. The butterfly was told to perform sacrifice to avoid a premature death. Just like the moth, but the butterfly didn't do it because he thought everybody loved him and his conduct, and the moth did because he knew that not everybody can love you. So one day, based on, Eshu corrupting the mind of the animals around him and whatnot, people became very annoyed and frustrated with the butterfly, and because of it, either they ate him or they touched his wings and broke them to where he couldn't fly anymore. Ultimately, he succumbed to a fate that was not desirable, as opposed to the moth, who didn't move that much and maintained his character, and people actually feared him, because that's when you look at a moth and, the eyes you see on the back of his wings and the designs actually scare away any would-be predators. So that's why they call it laba laba, right? This is the word for the butterfly. But it really makes reference to the black one. In this Odu, there's also a pataki. When the black butterfly would come around, it would actually, prognosticate negativity. So this Odu says, not to keep anybody paranoid, because like the Mothman movie and stuff like that. It's not all. I never watched that film, by the way. It seemed like a little too intense for me.
Was never a fan of Richard Gere.
I have nothing against Richard. Pretty Woman was a pretty popular movie, right? But if you see one, just be cautious and things like that. But you want to exemplify the moth here, because Ofun Ogbe says that we have to be careful to be based in impression rather than substance. So we never want to be a professional that looks the part but can't walk it. It's much better to be like the moth, be of substance. People who are confident really don't have to talk that much. We really don't have to floss. You are what you are. No matter where you are, your presence is felt. So the Odu says, be careful with people who, move a little too much, talk a little too much. That's really not the behavior to have here. You kind of want to be like the moth, be confident in your own skin. Don't feel the need to comment on others or try to influence others to be like you. And everything should turn out pretty fine. And be careful with the black butterflies this year. This Odu doesn't speak negatively of the color black. It's actually a power color, but at the same time, always take into account your own taboos, so you're not, confusing energy too much through this year. Yeah.
Somebody was asking, is this live? Yes,
absolutely. This is live. Share the video, guys. Share it. We're going to be here for a little bit. Thank you so much, Astro. Blessings. Please ask a question for sure. Bendiciones, Mr. Camacho. Ifaranti, Alafia, thank you, bendizione.
We got a lot. We got about 90 people watching right now.
Oh, my Lord.
Maybe a little more.
Thank you, guys. Definitely share the video. Happy New Year, man. I hope everybody had a blessed and unified holiday. I hope you got everything you wanted and more.
I want to ask everybody real quick. Do y'all, so we're getting a little older here. Do y'all stay up? Do y'all stay up to midnight, or are you out before midnight?
I do. I watched the ball drop. I watched the ball drop with my kids and
I watched Stranger Things, the finale. I heard
it's doing well. I heard it's doing extremely well.
That was my New Year's thing. I watched Stranger Things, the series finale. So
that's a great way to bring in the year.
Yeah,
that's fabulous. But I actually have the custom. I try to be home on New Year's. You know what I'm saying? Just because the changing of the energy and whatnot. It's a hectic time. But yeah, I was definitely home with the family, and we shout out to my kids. What's going on, guys? From Malta, Illinois.
Okay. Northern California.
All right.
Look at that. Brazil. I got to talk about it.
Oi.
I got to talk about Ciabra.
Yeah, we had some picanha before we recorded. We hit all our protein marks today.
Yep. Dallas, Texas here. We got North Carolina here. We got Ontario, California. We got so many people in here.
That's awesome.
I can't tell what flag that is.
I think that's Barbados.
Okay. Please correct us if that was incorrect. But,
I think so. I think so with the trident.
Yeah, everybody is in here and say, and yeah, it's still loading. All the comments are still loading, but
that's awesome. Yeah, we'll go ahead with Padaki from Ogun here. Yeah.
Well, hold on, there's a question here.
Oh, yeah,
I was waiting for it to load. It just says, would you say black butterflies, or does that apply to the black and yellow?
Yeah, if it's majority black or it's noticeably black, but it's kind of hard to see an all black one based on where you are geographically. But a dark butterfly here could be a warning, right, of something negative. So, because La Balaba would come around and it would always be negative. So everybody was like, oh man, this guy, he's coming around again. This Odu speaks of the importance of being likable, being social, being gregarious, being affable. Because Ofun Ogbe is an Odu that is definitely misunderstood and misinterpreted. I actually have a godson that I did Ifa to that came with Ofun Ogbe, and he's doing wonderfully, right? And he is a son of Ogun. Ogun here may be the most manageable Orisha, right? The reason I say that is because in this sign, Ogun actually provided a lot of solutions for the person. So in this Odu, Ofun Ogbe is characterized by stomach pains. People have to be very careful with their internal health, digestive system, all these different things. Because in this sign, Ofun Ogbe had a bad habit of he would always consume like excessive amounts of fatty protein, whether it was like certain parts of pork, certain parts of beef with a high fat content. And because of it, it actually started, really destroying his stomach, right? That's why Ofun Ogbe, along with the Odu of Obeyono, you tap your stomach and you blow it. To release any negativity and things like that could centralize in that area. So Ofun Ogbe went for divination, right? And it was identified with his own Odu that he needed to perform offerings and sacrifice to Ogun, where there's an interesting piece of work here that happens in the forest with some beef and things like that, cleaning a pigeon, Ogun, where when he went there, Ogun cleaned him and was able to expel the negativity that he had ingested. So this Odu says, be very careful where you're eating, what you're eating, and who you're getting it from. Unfortunately, it's an Odu of witchcraft where people might try to put negative things or intentions upon your food. So just make sure you trust the person that's nourishing you at that moment, because it might come with more than what you expected. But also in this Odu, the Orisha Ogun was, a carnivore, but in some versions a cannibal. And he actually would consume and consume and consume. And because of it, all the bacteria and things in his stomach was killing him, right? To the point where, he basically had to do the harakiri, or the seppuku, which is basically the samurai death.
Yeah.
When he actually opened his stomach up to be able to expel all of it, to be able to eliminate all of the gases that were within him, thus saving his life. But that's why we blow on our fingers after tapping our stomach in this Odu. So if we look here, it says a negativity of loss or giving too much. In this sign, Ogun provided a lot of benefits, but Ofun Ogbe, just like Ogun in the other stories, mistake was greed. This Odu speaks of the importance of patience, moderation, being calculated, when it comes to whatever it is that we want to advance in. But moderation is key here. Eating the right things, not eating too much. Even with work, charging just and due compensation for your work, but at the same time having a work-life balance, because without that, life isn't worth living. But Ogun here speaks of tragedies, unfortunately, where Ifa says we have to get any pending work done to the car, be careful with any pending procedures or ceremonies, procedures actually from a medical standpoint, or ceremonies from a spiritual standpoint, so that we can avoid any negativity or any kind of phenomenon when it comes to our lives, right? Because Ogun here, if we're talking about a negativity of loss, the losses that Ogun provides could be surgical, it could be trauma, whether it's through an accident or some type of tragedy. So we want to be able to do things in a way where we convert that into all the positives that he provided here, which was salvation and prosperity, right? So any questions before I move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want to, because I'll start going off. Yeah. If you're not initiated, is it a must to do a first of the year reading? That's completely up to you. If you want to, you can. It's ideal. If you are initiated, it becomes a little more optional because depending on the person's economic situation, they could either do their annual reading, or what I love to recommend if everything's going fine is for them to just do a new ebo from their sign, because that's going to provide new benefits, new blessings perpetually. You know, once you do an ebo from your odu, you never have to repeat it. It's like a cheat code to life. You get those benefits perpetually. So, it really has to be a conversation between the professional and client, or godparent and godchild. But is it obligatory? No.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
All right, we got another one. Iboru boy wachiche. Happy New Year to all from Astro. Hello. New to the channel. Welcome. I received my mano orula a few months ago. Okana sode o mo lokun. Can you give your view on this sign? Modupe. Okana sode, means literally Okana tied on the ide. Congratulations on taking what may be the most important spiritual step of your life in receiving your hand of Ifa. Definitely it marks you for Orisha priesthood or Ifa priesthood, depending on who you are. But a lot of benefits there. The most important thing is try to always have your green and yellow beads on, to avoid any type of lack of function or phenomena.
All right. The rest are just everyone's happy to be here. So
all right. Well, we're happy to have you. Yeah. So in the Odu of Ofun Ogbe, it speaks of the Orisha Oya quite heavily. Couple different things. But in this sign, Oya wanted to initiate her son as a babalawo. His name was Omoiku, right? Or child of death or lack of function. And in some versions, the boy's father was Shango. And Shango and Oya had different viewpoints on if and when the boy should do Ifa or whatnot. But she went to Orumila and the child received his hand of Ifa, and Ofun Nada or Ofun Ogbe was revealed, right? And Orumila said it was probably ideal that he did not initiate because he might be meant more for spiritual practice or Orisha practice. Now, mind you, this is within the hand of Ifa context, and even then, it's all due to interpretation. But Oya persisted, and she wanted to rush the ceremony because she had somewhat of a frustration where no one in her family was babalawo per se. So, being that, there was jealousy and arrogance and envy in the air, especially during the boy's ceremony, he pulls Ofun Ogbe again. And Orumila is kind of looking, saying, things might get a little intense here, especially on the day of the Yodye. So they say that when he went through the Yodye process, which is the part where we get hit with sticks, he actually died succumbing to the abusive blows from the brother Bawalaos, being that, spiritually he wasn't compatible with the process and he actually didn't want to do it. This Odu says that, we have to be very careful, right? How we progress spiritually and making sure that everything we do is based on an Odu and not off of inspiration or capriciousness. Because in this sign, Oya wanted her son to be a babalawo, but maybe he wasn't meant to be a babalawo. Maybe he didn't want to be a babalawo. We have to make sure that everything we do is based on a sign and is productive, because if we do things that Ifa is not telling us to do, things could end very negatively, like changing people's guardian angels, doing processes that are not based on Odu or Ifa's advice, and then we get a negative result. Well, Rula was saying this the whole time. Now, if someone has pending initiations and whatnot, this would be the year to do them. Ofun Ogbe says that whatever we have pending, ideally we want to sew up this year. So any brothers that want to become Bawalaos, this is a great year. Anybody that wants to crown Orisha, this is an excellent year. Because it speaks of talented people all around getting involved in this. But word to the wise, we have to make sure we're getting in it for the right reasons and with the right people. Because in this sign, Oya's son died in the Ifa. So we have to make sure that, whoever we select has our best interest in mind. Because it is of nothing or of no consequence to do a great deed in the presence of people who are not qualified to do it. So this Odu unfortunately speaks of spiritual malpractice on a whole, where the people who were initiating people really weren't prepared to be able to do this. And because of it, we started seeing very negative spiritual results within the community, right? So it's very easy for somebody to say, yeah, I'll take those couple thousands of dollars to crown Orisha to you, but is it going to get done right? And the results are everything, because all else is debatable. How are people's god kids doing? How are people's Ile doing? How are they living? All of these things are, significant when it comes to selecting an establishment. And this sign, Oya initiated her son into a house where Orumila really didn't have control of the babalaos or the professionals around him. So we have to be very careful there. Now, Ofun Ogbe is a polemic Odu because when Ofun Ogbe comes out, the first thing everybody wants to say to that brother is, hey, you can't do Ifa. And this couldn't be further from the truth. Ofun Ogbe is born babalawo. The problem is we have to identify the person's characteristics and conditions and make sure they're eligible, make sure they're qualified, and make sure they have that desire, because not everybody that's a Yobe is meant to be a Babalao, and not everybody that's Ofun Ogbe is meant to be an Espiritista or an Oriate or Orisha. We have to kind of gauge things. Ofun Ogbe can kind of do whatever they want based on their conditions. We just have to walk the path and get to know each other and see, hey, what do you like the most? What are you compatible with? And then we'll work towards that. But nothing here should be rushed, right? So if it was a negativity of loss, Oya suffered a loss here by being capricious and being, unmeasured and trying to do things in a spontaneous fashion. This Odu says we should not do anything spontaneous. Everything needs to be calculated and everything needs to be based on Ifa. Because Ofun Ogbe is saying people are getting a little too creative, where a lot of people are making things up along the way because they don't want to study. Like, for example, you have brother babalawos who don't know how to do Ebo, but they want to kind of have an influence over the climate of the community. Rather than having an opinion on everything, maybe you should sit down and study, as long as it takes for you to do a proper Ebo. Or, we have Olorisha who are like, I want to crown people. Well, make sure you crown the right guardian Orisha so people don't leave your house. Or, that you actually know what you're doing. But all of it comes back to study. In this sign, Oya did not study. In this sign, Orumila was unprepared. And because of it, it caused somebody's death. And there's plenty of ways to die and still be breathing, right? This Odu also speaks once again of the Ifa process, where Elegua had a son and they initiated his son, but once again, they did it incorrectly, right? It was a weak ceremony. Certain things were there to make it semi-legitimate, but the person saw none of the results and all of the negativities because a lot of corners were cut to the point where it was into the muscle rather than just into the fat. So once again, where is our loss going to come from as a community globally is by not studying and preparing ourselves to give the person coming in the best experience and possible chance at a great Ifa and Orisha career, right?
You got about 125 people.
Oh my gosh, thank you
chat.
guys.
And they are locked and listening, man. Normally we get flooded.
No questions,
with
all
comments.
right.
I mean, they're just saying, Ashe, all that.
That's
stuff.
what's up.
Like,
that's what's up. Yeah, Ofun Ogbe.
They're all here. They're here with you.
That's Orlando. Yeah.
But just while you're about to pick back up, let's just remind people again about the Light Within.
Guys, the Light Within workshop, take advantage of the $100 special that's going on right now. Use that promo. Get in there. We can't wait to see you in Atlanta and New York. We will be there in full effect, right? So hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a great couple days. We're going to learn a bunch. We're going to interact a bunch, and it's all going to be positive. So good things.
Click that link in the pinned comment. So this is only going to be available for tonight. So after the live, go ahead and make sure you save that and go ahead and click that link and use the code RootsMembers.
Righteous. So once again, Ofun Ogbe. Ofun Ogbe speaks of the importance of avoiding gossip, of avoiding getting involved in other people's personal or spiritual lives. Orumila is reprimanding the community on a whole for being overly critical. To be able to constructively criticize someone, you have to have constructed something. And a lot of the establishments who dedicate their time towards criticism haven't constructed anything, right? And Ofun Ogbe is saying this needs to be abolished and it needs to be reprimanded from the community on a whole, so it does not persist because it's weakening us, right? The reason I say this is because this is the Odu of Eshu Laboni, right? And Eshu Laboni, it's also present in the Odu of Otura Bara, but in Ofun Ogbe, it speaks of when he was the child of Obatala and Oshun, two very important deities here. So they gave birth to this child, and he was very prolific. He was a prodigy. He started speaking at a very young age. He had opinions that were far more mature than his age. And, people thought it was cute in the beginning. But little by little, he started talking too much. So people started complaining to Obatala and Oshun that their kid needed to kind of be gotten under control. So Obatala and Oshun tried to school him and educate him and discipline the best way they can. But Eshu actually started causing problems between them, where when Obatala would come home, Eshu would say, oh, mom said this, this, and this about you. And when Ochun would come home, he would say to Ochun, Obatala said this, this, and this about you. So Ochun got to the point where she got tired of him, and she told Obatala, I need you to get rid of this kid. I can't deal with him. Obatala was like, but that's our son. She said, either you get rid of him or I'm getting rid of everybody. I can't deal with this no more. Now, mind you, this is all metaphoric, but we still do have to be careful, right? Now, mind you, Obatala said, well, I guess I'm going to get rid of the kids. So he took Eshu Laboni and he grabbed him and he started saying, I'm going to take you and I'm going to throw you into the river because you don't know how to behave. And Eshu was like, no, please, I'm pleading with you. Don't trust her. Don't believe her. And Obatala knew it was a lie, but Obatala couldn't deal anymore with the boy's vernacular. Like, he was talking too much. He threw him thinking he would make it to the river, and the boy fell flat in his face and died. So sad story, right? But that's why Eshu Laboni is mounted in a flat plate, right? So mind you, everybody has a different book. Everybody has a different lineage and format, but Eshu Laboni, since time immemorial, has always been mounted with a flat face in a clay plate because of this story where he fell flat and his face basically became plain. So this Odu says we cannot carry on the behavior of Eshu. In this sign, Eshu was overly critical. He was a gossiper. He would get involved in everything that had nothing to do with him. And because of it, it basically put him in a position to succumb to a fate that he did not desire. Being overly expressive and critical doesn't create anything positive. It creates animosity. And ultimately, the energies that be have a way of dispelling it. Obatala here killed the gossipers. So Ifa says we really want to avoid this kind of behavior. Ochun killed the gossipers is here as well. So it's very important to mind our business, study, and really provide the best product to be able to grow as a spiritual community, but not only within spirituality, but socially. If we're involved in other things as well, if it has nothing to do with us, let's mind our business and keep it moving, because it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Orishas are the ones who are meant to discipline, not the human beings, right? So it speaks of the importance of relationships, right? Not losing ourselves as man and woman just because we're parents, family. Make sure that, we're stellar parents, but we're also stellar husbands and wives. Let's go out. Let's enjoy life. Let's understand that, through the natural course of life, our children are going to have their own lives one day, and that's okay, but we can't lose each other in the process. So date night is obligatory, guys. Try to get out there at least once a week, spend some couch time, maybe some Netflix, and we'll be all right, So, that's Obatala and Oshun.
All right, we got about 140 people in the chat here.
Holy smokes.
Shout out to Trinity, 27 months. They've been a VIP member here.
Oh, my God, son Trinity. God bless you, Papo. Any stories of Shango in this sign? Yes, absolutely. Shango, unfortunately, was actually present for the debacle of Ifa that was done to Eshu's son. Whether he was in on it or not, the paperwork really doesn't explain it. But he did redeem himself in Ofun Ogbe because there is a story where Ofun Ogbe wanted to initiate his son, and he was looking for the right person to do it. And the only person he trusted was Shango. And Shango did Ifa to the boy, initiated him, defeated all his enemies, defended him. And it was a very positive relationship where Shango is a huge focal point within this Odu. So the message from Shango here is be loyal, be accountable, and fulfill what we say we are, because even though things became difficult for Ofun Ogbe and his son, Shango still defended them, regardless of whatever came unexpectedly. So Shango here, he maintained his honor here, and there was some great lessons to learn from him. But it also speaks testaments and volumes to be careful who you're around, because Shango was at the Ifa they did to Eshu's son, and it was a debacle, and he ended up getting, yoked up in all the nonsense and gossip and slander that came afterwards because it was a weak process. So that was Shango's role in this Odu. Can you speak on Oyekumbara briefly before I get into another pataki about Ofun Ogbe? Oyekumbara is the Odu of the rodeo, right? It's the Odu where Eshu dominated the horse. Briefly, the horse would bully Eshu. Eshu was tired of it. Went to visit Orumila. Oyekun Bara was revealed, where he was told to perform sacrifice with rope. He did, and the next time the horse tried to buck on him, he wrapped or inserted the rope into the horse's mouth, and it became the bit, basically. And since then, we've been riding horses, even though they're 4 times our size, at least. So Oyekun Bara speaks of the importance of not being like the horse, to avoid arrogance and aggression, because it could lead us to being in a very negative position, even incarcerated. But we should be more like Eshu. We should learn how to defeat our enemies in a more ingenious way rather than just brute strength. There's other ways to handle things without losing prestige. Okay. Ofun Ogbe, Obatala is a huge Odu here. I mean, a huge Orisha here. Ofun Ogbe is known as Obatala's son. So we spoke about Eshu Laboni, but in this sign, Ofun Ogbe was Obatala's son, literally. And Obatala had a farm, right? And his son worked it and kind of lived off the land with his father and whatnot. And his father gave him everything, basically. But his father told him, hey, my animals are mine, right? So Obatala had this beautiful white goat, right? And Ofun Ogbe, being disorganized and wanting all the things he can't have, decided one day he was going to eat his father's property, right? Well, he didn't realize that there was a curse on the goat that anybody that ate it would get, terminally ill. Colic, dysentery, basically whatever. He started getting horrible, horrible stomach pains. This Odu speaks of the importance of avoiding food poisoning, food allergies, making sure we're eating at places with high quality and hygienic standards, because this is an Odu where people got sick off of food and things got contaminated. So make sure you guys are careful with meat and things like that, making sure it hasn't turned before we consume it. But in this sign, Ofun Ogbe stole his father's goat, and because of it, he's became gravely ill. So basically, he's dying in a bed. Obatala sees his goat is dead, right? The remains of it, and he sees his son is dying. So he goes up to his son. He said, son, what's wrong? He said, I had some bad jollof rice, and, it hit me all wrong, and, I think there's something really wrong with me. Please help me. And Obatala said, are you sure that you just ate jollof rice? Because, man, you'll never believe this. My goat is missing. He said, oh, father, I would never steal from you. I mean, that's ridiculous. I would never do that. And Obatala looked at him and he said, you're a liar. I know you ate my goat. And from this day forward, I curse your stomach to never be able to ingest white things. So that's why ideally the animals that are offered to Ofun Ogbe's deities or orishas, other than Obatala in this case, of course, are black, right? And that's this is an Odu of lactose intolerance. The person has to be careful with dairy products, cheeses, milks, things like that, because they're all white in color, right? So this Odu says, be very careful, make sure you're putting the right things, or more importantly, compatible things in your body, so that you reap the benefits and you don't go through anything uncomfortable, because Ofun Ogbe speaks about the stomach all day long, right? So be very careful with that. And unfortunately, it also could speak of epidemics and things like that. Salmonella, E. coli, COVID, supposedly stemmed from, the pork or a bat or whatever they tell us. So be very careful with food handling and quality, and make sure you're protecting yourself. Anything on Eshu and the sign for the letter of the year? Absolutely. So Eshu Laboni was born here. It's an Eshu that should be mounted if you have Ofun Ogbe, right? It's also in the Odu of Oturabara. But in this sign, Eshu wanted his son to become Babalawo, and he trusted Orumila, and Orumila did an improper process. So this Odu, when we're talking about Eshu, says, once again, from a client standpoint, we need to be careful who we're trusting with our spiritual well-being or our well-being in general. This could be a doctor, a babalao, a lawyer, a contractor. This is an Odu of theft. This is an Odu of unethical business practices, right? But from another standpoint, being Orumila, making sure that we only take on work that we're prepared for. We're seeing a huge lack of preparation within our spiritual community as far as services. Babalawos that don't know how to perform at Bo, or Orisha that don't know how to properly rogate a head. And of course, we don't criticize. I mean, however people do things is completely up to them. But if you're going to accept clientele and you want to gain great results, make sure you take the time to be around people who actually know what they're doing so you can replicate it and possibly put your own swing on it to get even better results, right? By putting in that much more effort and study. But Ofun Ogbe says if we're not careful, people are going to become progressively frustrated with the spirituality on a whole because either they're getting robbed, right, or they're being mishandled, or there's unethical behavior. We have to be very careful that we're not giving somebody money for a ceremony and then that person is taking the money or making up an excuse to not give us what we paid for. This Odu speaks of all of those things, so we have to be very careful because Ofun Ogbe says the Orishas don't take such actions lightly because it represents them. And if they've done everything correctly, they don't want us sullying their reputation after thousands of years. Next part aquí. Oh, any important herbs or adimus. So Ofun Ogbe speaks heavily of the use of honey, right? This is the Odu of the honey badger, one of my favorite animals for sure. You like the honey badger?
Honey badger's vicious. You ever watch the videos on YouTube?
Oh man, all of that was born here. All of that was born here. So the honey badger was really tired of getting bullied, and he wanted to be able to defend himself, but a lot of people wanted to kill him, based on his behavior and his character or lack thereof. So he went to visit Orunmila, and Ifa told him to perform sacrifice to Oshun with honey. So he looked at Orula and said, but the only way to get honey is in a beehive. Orula said, yeah. And he said, but bees sting. He said, yes, they do. He said, but, if I get stung enough, I'm going to die. He said, well, you're going to die regardless, so you got to figure out what you're going to do. But this is what Ifa is saying. So the honey badger said, all right. So he went up the tree, and he basically just dove into the tree or into the, depending, because you could have a beehive in a tree, you could have it hanging. But usually, with them, they're so heavy, they go right into the core of the tree. So he's in there. He ate some, he smothered some, and he got some comb, and, he's getting stung. He's getting stung real bad. So he got stung so bad that when he arrived at Ochung's temple, palace, whatever, as he was offering it to her, he died right there, right? So Ochung looked at his sacrifice and realized that he had realized that, his conduct needed to better, and he was realizing that his actions really had an effect. And she covered him in honey, right? And he was able to start healing from it, all the benefits that honey has. I mean, the stuff never decomposes. And after 5 days, he resurrected. And Ochung was there and Orula was there. And she said, I'm very proud of you because it took a lot of courage and a lot of humility to be able to know that you needed to do something better with your life. If you ever need me, the secret of Ofun Ogbe is to take baths with water and honey, to apply honey to Ori, right? And the badger became the honey badger. Right? That's in Ofun Ogbe or Ofun Nara. Ofun Nara means he who sleeps, right? Or he who becomes indestructible through sleeping. And that's what happened with the honey badger. He basically slept away death because death came to get him, but because of the honey and how much Ochung, influenced death, and death wanted to impress her, she's like, that's my son. And he's like, all right, I'll let him live as long as he's always covered in honey, which, based on his name, he is. So if you look, the life of the honey badger is in the Odu of Ofun Ogbe. Whether it's him getting the honey and getting stung to death, or getting bit by whatever snake and resurrecting, or doing the defensive aggressive retreat where he's basically sunning a lion. All of that is in the Odu of Ofun Ogbe. So the Odu says we have to have good character. We have to avoid conflicts and aggression with situations that have nothing to do with us. Once again, this is an Odu that says mind your business, right? So if we're able to do that and be upstanding individuals and ethical individuals within our respective communities, everything's going to go great this year. But if we go left and we veer off and we continue with bad habits, whether it's vices, whether it's, unethical practices, what have you, things are going to go very badly, right? Because Ofun Ogbe is a very destructive Odu, being that the honey badger is a very destructive animal. But Ochung is a huge deity here. She is apex, along with Obatala, Orunmila, Ogun, of course, Oya. These are the big Orishas here for sure. But every now and again, if you're feeling down, a honey bath this year is really great, Ofun Ogbe says. So That's the biggest adimu there is the honey, specifically to Ochun or to Eshu, whatever Orishas you have available. It's pretty much compatible with anybody because of the story of the honey badger.
All right, we're about 155 people in right now.
Oh, man. So man.
You got more comments coming in.
All right. You mentioned it's a great year to do Ifa and Crown Orisha. How do you decide which one first in a couple that has both
coming in their signs?
Well, here's the thing. And this is more just kind of analyzing from a practical standpoint. So I have people come all the time. They receive hand of Ifa, man and woman. And it's identified that the woman can crown, but the man could do Ifa. So they say, Baba, who should do what first, right? So the reason I say that the gentleman should perform Ifa initiation first is because once he becomes Babalawo, he can do a couple things for his wife, right? Remember that Odiche says that the first client of the Babalawo is his wife. Forgive me. So it's saying that he could perform sacrifice for you. He could perform ebo for you. He could do your head rogations. He could literally be your professional, right? And yes, married people can rogate each other's head. That's in the Odu of Oturache, right? As well as Osache and Obedi. So it's more productive that way. And usually, if things get rolling the right way, Ifa might pay for the Orisha process if you're trying to get that ROI. If not, it's always more productive because that way the gentleman could do things on behalf of his wife. So I would say that. Tell that gentleman to get Ifa done and start studying so he could really, make things happen.
Okay.
Any batakis about fog or illusions in this sign? Well, it does speak of the gases, right? In this sign, Ogun had a overaccumulation of methane within his stomach, right, or gas. And because of it, he had to literally cut himself open to be able to release it because his organic system was going to implode. So when you're talking about fog, depending on how it manifested, like when you read the Pataki, it literally says like smoke came from Ogun's belly, right? Because it was hot with all of the acid and the bile and things like that, The illusion here, when you look at Eshu Laboni, he acted one way with somebody and another with another. So also the illusion of his face being flat, So all of the themes are there, but once again, it's an Odu of trickery, scams, unethical behavior. We have to be very careful with our funds here, our reputations, our loved ones, making sure we're not bringing people around that, are not of our benefit and of our interest.
Okay.
Can you speak on Oyekumbara? We did.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Boru, I'm sorry.
Boop.
Is there any connection to the numerology year of the one? Guys, forgive me. I'm usually not stumped, but I'm not really big on numerology. If you could do a follow-up message, I might be able to elaborate more. But just based on that, Ofun Ogbe, the number one really doesn't vibrate. Peace and blessings. Can you please speak on the story where it speaks on the monkey with 9 tails from Awani Chidi? Very briefly, the princess wanted a monkey of 9 tails. The father was told not to pursue this by Orula, but he did anyway with the Odo of Awani Chidi. They did a Botu Ochosi and Ode. He hunted down the monkey, regretfully, because he saw that the monkey was a provider and protector for his family, and the princess was spoiled, right? In some versions, the monkey escaped. In other versions, Ochosi helped the monkey escape. But that Odu says we can't overindulge our children. We can't have everything we want all the time. And we can't just do things for money. We got to make sure there's money and it's right, because Ochosi went through a very moral internal battle with himself there based on the piece of work. So back to Ochun, Ofun Ogbe. This Odu says the vulture flies over the hurricane. So in this sign, the vulture wanted to go to war with the hurricane. So needless to say, the vulture wasn't doing that great. And, they went to Orumela and wanted some clarity because the hurricane was trying to interrupt the vulture from getting to its destination or goals. Ofun Ogbe was revealed, and Ifa told him, perform sacrifice to Oya, and when this was done, Oya said, what's your predicament? And the vulture said, well, your son, the hurricane, has beef with me, and he doesn't allow me to get to where I need to go. And Oya said, well, are you confronting him? And the vulture said, well, in so many ways, I'm trying to fly through and he doesn't move out the way. And she said, well, could you go higher? The vulture said, I could fly all the way to heaven if I want, but I don't want to have to do that every time I want to get around this guy. Oya said, the best war is the one we avoid, and it's the one we always win. And the vulture realized, it had been engaging with somebody that was beneath them. So the vulture said, all right. Ikole said, all right, I'm going to fly up. And the vulture flew over the hurricane. And the hurricane started saying, oh, you're scared. Oh, you're worried. Oh, this, that, and the third. And the vulture acted like it didn't hear him. And he just flew right over him. The ironic part was the hurricane disappeared because it wasn't based on anything tangible. And the vulture till this day flies closest to the sun in Olodumare. So in this Odu, Ifa says we must be like the vulture. We cannot pay attention to people that are not on our frequency level, who are not on our level, who are not up there. Because if you try to engage everybody that's beneath you, you're going to end up lowering yourself. Ifa says be above them. If they could do something to you, they would. So this Odu says be like the vulture and avoid situations here, because this is an Odu of very intense conflict, lethal conflict. And if you know that you don't have to engage somebody, and if you don't, they're just going to disappear and flake away, let them do that. Kind of like the vulture let the hurricane do, or Ochung let the hurricane do. And don't behave like the hurricane. Don't be uncomfortable. Don't be a point of disinterest. Go with the flow, right? But Ofun Ogbe speaks of the importance of avoiding people who don't matter, so that prosperity and growth can keep happening, because the vulture kept going higher and higher and higher, and the hurricane stayed close to the water. So, big lesson there. All right. Can you speak on Iwori with the bear? Are we talking about Iwori Mei? In that sign, the bear betrayed Orula because he was taking all the ebos and not fulfilling Orumila's wishes. So Orula told him the wrong thing, so that he would be in the place that he actually wanted the ebo to go. And when it was actually taken to the river, Ochung actually drowned the bear because he was trying to kill Orula and destroy him by not doing the ebos correctly for him. So it's an Odu of betrayal, for sure. You always have to appear to be something you're not, right? To kind of keep people guessing, or tell them the opposite of what you want them to think or do, so they can destroy themselves while they think they're destroying you, right? Ofun Ogbe. This Odu speaks quite a bit about religious tolerance. This is actually one of the Odus where Fa first manifested, right? The Bokonos are brothers of Benin who practice their ancestral system. I believe it's known as Ogega, right? Where they throw the three opeles backwards. And I actually saw semi-recently, and this is why we really shouldn't speak about things we don't know, because we can insult somebody, unnecessarily, and we can make ourselves look foolish, right? Which seems to be a common practice. And, someone said, what is this nonsense? And it was a brother over there performing their divination the way they do, where they throw the three opeles and things like that. And unfortunately, someone had to come and correct them and say, hey, this is an ancestral system that might even predate ours. The Odu Ofun Ogbe actually speaks of why the Ifa consultation within Ifa is done with one chain, but we pull out a main sign with two witnesses, kind of like in this year Ofun Ogbe came out, but there were two other signs to be able to identify the negativity or the positivity. But in Benin they throw three chains, one per Odu, right? So Rumila in this Odu, he kind of was like, I appreciate that and I love that and I respect that. But, I got things to do. He just kept it a buck. So he said, I'm going to do all that with just one chain. So he always paid respect, even though he did things differently. So this Odu says we need to respect people even if they do things differently. And once again, if it has nothing to do with us, we have no reason to comment on it unless we're trying to make $1 off of the conflict, which you're not going to be able to, if you're trying to put on a show. So Ofun Ogbe speaks of tolerance. It speaks of respect. It speaks of real study and growth. Orumila here became a very traveled babalawo. It speaks of his slave Ominigun, who was performing so much Ifa work and all these different things that he didn't know what to do with himself. The most important thing is loyalty, respect, and humility. I mean, there's other patakis here. When we talk about loss, this Odu speaks of the importance of saying less to get more. You know, in this sign, Ochosi was looking for a wife, and he went for divination. Ofun Ogbe was revealed where Ifa told him to perform Ebo and take it to the forest. When he did, he saw a beautiful buffalo, and that buffalo actually removed its skin and was a beautiful woman. So when the woman left, he went and took the skin and hid. She came back looking for it. He said, "Are you looking for this?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I'll give it back to you if you marry me." And she said, "I will, as long as you don't ever tell anybody my secrets." And he said, "I never will." And she said, "Well, what are you good at?" He said, "Well, I'm a great hunter." She said, "Okay, but you don't make no money." He said, "No, I don't. I really don't know what to do. Like, I eat and then I give the rest away." She said, "Well, how about this? I'm Oya. Like, I have to do with the marketplace and stuff like that. You get the product and I'll sell it." So that started happening, and his life changed incredibly. He had a beautiful wife. He had loving children now. He had assets and stability. And, you know, it speaks of the importance of the other half. But people became very jealous of Ochosi because they were used to seeing him marginalized. And now he was this uberly successful man, so they wanted to know his secret. In some versions, it was his other wives, which is more of an Isheshe concept, because Ofun Ogbe also speaks heavily of a very similar story that's in the Odu of Osakuleya and Isheshe. In other versions, it was, you know, the people of the town, but specifically in the Lukumi, it was his brother. And Orumila had told Ochosi not to drink, and one day his brother came over offering him a drink, and Ochosi didn't listen and drank, and his brother asked, you know, what was the secret? You know, how had he become so successful? And he said, "Well, my wife is a buffalo." The one thing he wasn't supposed to say. So the brother went back. You know, it's an ugly part of the pataquilla, I won't say here. But it was to the point where, you know, ultimately Oya said, "I can never be with Ochosi again. He's shamed me beyond belief." So Ochosi went looking for her, and he never found her again. You know, so this Odu speaks of the importance of less is more. Keep your personal lives private. Don't get involved in other people's lives or situations that have nothing to do with you, because that's people who behave that way, they never progress. You know, they kind of end up living at home forever with their parents or things like that. Like, if you want to really progress in life and do things, you have to focus and you know, move with discretion. That's what successful people do. They don't talk about their results. They allow them to speak for themselves. So Ochosi here, he learned a very hard lesson the hard way, where he lost the woman of his dreams, he lost his family, all of these different things, because he didn't know how to say less. So this Odu is saying we need to speak less and do more. We need to say less and study more to be able to save our spirituality, because Ofun Ogbe is a very detrimental Odu when there isn't preparation. So, but from another standpoint, if we're able to, it speaks of a lot of prosperity, a lot of happiness, a lot of compatibility, stability, real growth. Sometimes we have to metaphorically eliminate the family we're born with or the relatives we're born with to be able to create the family we need and want. And that's okay, because, you know, we're all meant to be kings and queens in our own castles, you know, but remembering always that the relationship is first, and loyalty is key, you know. Questions, anything? I'm wondering, how does Ifa work under the Gregorian calendar? Well, I know the Ifa New Year, I believe, is in June. They have a 4-day week known as the Oshe. The Odu of Okanafung speaks of the 7-day week and how each day represented different things. Like, for example, Monday was Ojo Aje, right? Or the day of money or economic prosperity. Sunday was the day of rest. I think Saturday was the day of triumph. You know, it is mentioned, and it's actually an Isheshe verse that speaks of the 7-day week versus the 4. The Oshe is a very productive thing. It's usually recommended for people who are beginning, so they can learn how to throw obiabata and begin interacting with the orishas and getting those results and beginning their apprenticeship. But for more, you know, experienced, tenured priests, the Oshe is something that, you know, could be optional, right? So it really depends on whatever anybody wants to incorporate into their routine. But the most important thing is being on a routine, right? Making sure that you're holding yourself accountable. Even if you do it the Lukumi way. Oh, I feed Orula on October 4th. Well, at least you're feeding him once a year, brother. God bless. Or, you know, I take care of Oya on February 2nd or whatever of the other days now that Oya has, or whatever lineage you come from. That's perfectly fine as long as you're taking care of her, you know. But at the end of the day, it's all about your personal routine based on your schedule. All of these other things are guidelines to help you stay organized and diligent. Very nice. Thank you very much.
This is very insightful.
Thank you very much.
This is cut off, so I'll read it once it gets.
For a person wishing to complete their hand of Ifa in Lukumi tradition within your spiritual house, what's the best
month to have the ceremony for this year?
I please forgive me. With the way our schedule works, it's kind of rotating. It's not that, like, for example, if you notice, Botanica Candles and More has never advertised a hand of Ifa. I don't post my hand of Ifas. I don't feel the need to. I'm at a stage in my career where the only confirmations I need are from the godchildren receiving with me and the people performing the ceremony with me and Norula. So that's why we really don't have a set time, or there isn't an ideal date. I will tell you that 2026 is very intense. It is very hectic. It really comes down to when you have the funds, reaching out to Botanica Candles and More, whether it's through phone, email, what have you, and kind of getting an idea there. But I know for a fact, the first half of the year, if there is, it would be for the second half of the year. So, first come, first serve. So we really appreciate you even considering us or having that thought. We hope to be able to perform that for you the way we've done Satisfactory for so many others. And it's a beautiful process that we get a centimeter better at every time.
Okay.
Can we speak on Owani Gunda? Yeah, Owani Dawang. Interesting Odu because he was very aggressive. And Ogun was like, I'm the most aggressive. So he started cursing Owani Dawang. Owani Gunda felt it. And he went for divination where Ifa said he had to make offerings to Ogun with humility. He did. And Ogun explained, he said, you're pretty aggressive, but I'm Ogun. Like, no one's, you're walking around here like you're you, but I'm me. So I don't like the way your voice sounds. So your name isn't Owani Gunda anymore. Now it's Owani Dawang. So basically that Odu says that we have to make sure we're very careful with our character and we have patience with ourselves and those around us so that, there's never any misunderstandings and whatnot, because Ogun became offended by Owani Dawang's character and behavior, and specifically the way he spoke or the sound of his name. So it's not going to be necessarily anybody in the world. It's going to be the Orishas who are going to hold the person accountable. So that's very key there.
Okay. These are longer here.
Oh, man, one more before we get back to another pataki.
They're just saying thank you.
Oh, this is the Iboru. This is my first time in one of your live shows. Welcome. I just want to say thank you for the relatable way you explain.
You explain signs and their corresponding patakis.
Thank Orula. Orula's the man. He made it easy. He's may blessings be upon him always.
Yep. But go ahead. Yeah, I'll put some more.
Righteous. So Ofun Ogbe. Gosh, guys, a negativity of loss, and that sign or Yah lost her relationship. Family in the home is very key here.
Hold on. People are saying there's no sound here.
Oh no.
Hold on. It says we have sound. Hold on.
Live YouTube.
Yeah. Y'all do a mic check for me here. Hold on. I'm gonna raise something up. You might hear yourself talk.
Hello. Boru.
That's weird.
You guys hear us?
No. I don't hear me. Where'd the sound go? Hold on, just hang on, guys. Let me hit a sound here. Let's see if I hear that when it comes up. Someone said sound is good. Sound is good. Okay, yeah.
We're back on?
I hope so. People saying they got sound.
All right, righteous, guys.
All right.
Ofun Ogbe.
But they said the Owani Ogunda got cut off.
Oh, Lordy. That's a long one. Owani Dawang. Basically, Owani Gunda's name bothered Ogun. So because of it, Ogun became frustrated and started cursing him or threatening that he was going to kill him. Owani Dawang, Owani Gunda went for divination with some Bawalaos. His Odu was revealed where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice to Ogun, which he did. Where Ogun told him, hey, I was about to eliminate you. you know, and it's because I don't like your name. I don't like the way you're acting. I don't like the way you're talking. So I need all that to change. So your new name is Owani Dawang, which means Owani comes constructively, like he comes to create, right? And because of that, you know, Ogun blessed him always, and they were able to move on. So this Odu says that, you know, our character is key, how we behave, how we interact with others. Too much bravado here really doesn't get far, and it has nothing to do with, you know, anybody else on earth, but the Orishas really hold the person accountable here for their behavior, and karma is a real thing in this Odu. So make sure we're just behaving soundly and, you know, courteously, and just live at peace, you know, without trying to prove too much.
But yeah, everyone's saying they got sound now, so.
All right, well, Ofun Ogbe. I'm not sure how much longer we're going, Phil, but
we're at an hour. We got another, let's say another 15 minutes.
righteous. So Ofun Ogbe, let me see which ones I still got. Yeah, why not? So in the Odu of Ofun Ogbe, it speaks of the Orisha Obaluaye or Bawaluaye. And Bawaluaye had a habit. You know, this Odu says we have to be very careful with alcohol and vices this year, family. It's a very big ewu or taboo. Everything in moderation, but please do not drink and drive. You know, it's an Odu that doesn't assimilate this very well, or no vices or anything that could intoxicate the person to the point of belligerence, right? This Odu says that Bawaluaye had a habit of drinking. Right? And because of it, he pretty much lost everything. So he went to his father Obadala's house asking for a place to stay. Obadala reprimanded him and chastised him, saying, you know, I know why you're here. You know, I'm not pleased. You're my son, so I'm not going to leave you outside, but you need to do the right thing here. So there's a curfew, right? So Obaluaye started, you know, doing well, the curfew working. Obadala was pleased, but he couldn't handle his addiction. So therefore, he reverted back. He relapsed, and he started coming home at 2, 3 in the morning, and he would throw up in Obadala's bed and lay next to him, and it was just really grotesque, right? So one day he did it again after Obadala told him to never do it again, and Obadala got so annoyed that he literally kicked Obaluaye off of the etera, or the mat. And being that Obadala lived on a hill, Obaluaye, in his drunken slumber, rolled down the hill into the ocean and drowned, right? This Odu speaks of the importance of trying to be home, not to be out in wee hours of the morning. Be careful with alcohol or ingesting anything. This is an Odu of overdose. You know, we have an epidemic here in this country that we need to be very careful with whatever is going on. But making sure that the more we're home, the better things will be. Because in this sign, this is an Odu of tragedy, unfortunately. It says that Ofun Ogbe could die drowned, burned, car accident, tragedies, etc. It says that we have to be very careful and respectful of the people in uniform, right? It's our police officers, firefighters, military personnel, and the force and service. All of these themes are here in this Odu. And, you know, looking at the role that Obadala played, you know, he was in a very difficult situation. He loved his son, but he hated the habit. So, you know, sometimes we have to make things uncomfortable for the person for them to grow and elevate. But when we talk about a negativity of loss, Obaluaye lost his life here because he had no control over his habits, right? Ofun Ogbe is beautiful. It has really beautiful aspects as well. It's a very prosperous Odu. You know, this is actually the Odu of, you know, forgive me, Phil, it's the Odu of sperm, right?
Okay.
The male specimen, right? And where, you know, Ato, as it's known, became the most valuable of fluids within the body. So all of them went for divination: urine, blood, saliva, and sperm. They all were identified with the Odu of Ofun Ogbe, but the only one to perform sacrifice was sperm. So Orumila said, who is the king of fluids? Who is the king of liquids? And urine said, I am. He said, no, you aren't. You fall on the ground and nothing grows. And then saliva said, I am. He said, you don't do much either. You don't create anything, you know. And blood said, I am. Surely I am. I carry oxygen through the body. He said, yeah, but as soon as you hit earth, you die. So Sperm said, is it me? He said, absolutely, sir, because you're the only one that when you arrive at your goal, you create people, right? So in this sign, it says, if we're not trying to have a baby family, make sure you take all precautions because this is a very fertile Odu. And if it does happen, God bless you and congratulations. It's the greatest gift God has given us is being able to make more people.
Okay. All right.
All right, talk to me. Anything on Obesa? Obesa says do things completely and don't make the same mistake twice. Obesa says the secret to life is not making the same mistake twice, right? And do things completely. If we left school, finish school. If we have pending ceremony, finish that. Don't be somebody that leaves things halfway because it's not good for the person's emotional state and it can lower their self-confidence in that Odu. Make sure we're always refining ourselves and educating ourselves because Obesa is somebody that, you know, if they're not careful, they become understimulated mentally and, you know, it could lead to situations, God forbid, you know, in advanced stages of life, you know, a Parkinson's, a dementia, but in the youth, just overall frustration and whatnot. We have to be studying and learning. You know, Obesa is a very intelligent person as long as they, you know, choose to pick up the book. All right, thank you. Egungun himself or specific Eguns in Ofun Ogbe. Egungun, absolutely. I mean, you know, it speaks of the ancestors here. When we go over the pataki of the sperm, it represents our ancestors and our lineage. They say that, you know, the spirituality of that actually has to do with Odudua being our primordial ancestors. So ultimately, all of our Egun derive from Odua. We are all Omodua, right? So definitely, you know, Odua is really big here because he's all of our fathers, right? Obatala is big here. But, you know, that's usually how Egungun is interpreted within Ofun Ogbe or Ofun Nara.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. People are just commenting that they can hear fine.
Awesome.
They had to
We have sound.
Yeah, they had to leave and come back.
Righteous.
Hold on, let me go back to the questions here. Here we go.
I'm new to ATR, so we only feed the Orisha annually. Sorry if it's a silly question. No such thing. It depends. Like, for example, somebody who's a Wani Virete in their Ifa, they should be feeding Eshu every 2 weeks if they're about Babalao. The Odu Osar Osung says that Ifa eats every Oshe. So you have certain situations where they eat more frequently, but for somebody at the hand of Ifa level, there's no reason, I think, for their Orishas to be eating more than on an annual basis. When you get into more priesthood rites, whether it's Olorisha or Babalawo, at that point, you may need more frequent options because you might have bigger problems. You know, maybe you have an enemy. Maybe, you know, you just have bigger goals. Maybe your Odu is manifesting heavier. Any of those things. So baseline, conventionally, yes. No such thing as a silly question.
Okay.
Oh, man. I'm waiting for somebody to come up to me in traffic and yell that at me.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Do you know where this is? No. I thought you knew the way. Someone did that to me recently.
Are you serious?
Yeah, one of my godsons. He was like, wait, you know how to get over here? I'm like, nah. He's like, you lied to me.
Oh, that's so funny. All right.
Great song.
Okay, here we go.
Borui Boya, what is the benefits to offering Eshu or any of the Orishas yams? Blessings, Miha. So the yam is a symbol of fertility. So it's actually could be used if like a woman's trying to conceive, or it could have to do with goals. Like we put it in the ground and something grows from it. So you could offer it to the Orisha to accomplish goals. Overall, all of the Orishas love yam. It's the staple carbohydrate over there, apart from like jollof rice. So all of those reasons, you know, depending on the Orisha, it could have different effects. But to Eshu, yeah, all day. You could get all of those things.
Okay.
You have on the white too, very appropriate. Yes, I'm trying to purify my wardrobe this year. I'm doing much more white. My wife gifted me these beautiful white Air Force Ones. Phil likes them. Apparently these are old people's shoes now, right, Phil?
Yeah. That's the truth.
I remember I used to be able to get these for $80.
That's funny.
Oh my God.
Bernie says 2026 be healthy.
Sir, thank you very much. That should be everybody's resolution, and that is a huge point in Ofun Ogbe is longevity, whether we're talking about the male specimen, whether we're talking about putting the right things in our bodies, staying active, being careful with parasites and bacteria and outbreaks and things like that. Absolutely. Guys, don't forget the coupon. Get in the...
Yeah, I'll put it up there one more time.
Thank you, Baba. Anything you can offer on Osadi? Well, I see Osadi, but you put the 5-7 there, so I'm not sure if the 5 was supposed to be a 9. Are you talking about in the shell, or are you talking about in Ifa? That changes things a little bit.
All right, well, let's move on real quick.
Baba, is this the letra from Miguel Febles? Yes, it is. That is the one that I follow. Our fountain of knowledge, Beto Berosung, was one of the organizers there for the longest time. His teacher was Miguel Febles' brother, Panchito Feble, and his yubona was Luciano Canto Iwaribobe. And he was the teacher of my godfather's teacher, Kata Iobe. And, he passed away recently. So since I've been involved, the Casona, or Miguel Febles, Dia de Octubre, has always been La Letra del Año. There's always been 2, in my opinion. Well, maybe, in Africa, they have, Baba Popola pulls out his, which is wonderful. I think he's in Ekiti. I think he does it. And then you have the world one in Okeitache. And then, over here, in Cuba, it was always the Casona, and then the Asociación has one as well. So there's always been kind of a duality, but I've always followed the Miguel Febles Commission because my lineage literally derives from those people. We're not from the house of Miguel, but, Beto, based on, his family and their relationship with the Febleses and his relationship with Panchito, that's just where my loyalty lies, you know what I'm saying? And Lázaro Cueta is still there, and there's brothers in the photo that I've had the pleasure of meeting and have actually been in ceremony of mine. So all gentlemen, all prepared, all ethical, you know what I'm saying? So great stuff, yeah. But it is the Miguel Febles Odu for sure. But all of them are great. Shout out to all the brothers who, are trying to, take a stand and, do all the ceremonies the right way to be able to pull out a Odu for their area. I think that's beautiful with all of their different associations and things like that. And more power to them. God bless.
All right, so that question that we'd asked, they said in the show.
Okay, so Sadi in the show is Osa. Being that the double letter doesn't translate, right? So Osa says, there's so many proverbs there, but usually Osa says a whisper goes into the ear and turns into a tornado. So this Odu says we have to be very careful who we listen to. We can never listen to gossip. We can't get advice from everybody because not everybody has good intentions for us. Seek out mentors and guides that really care about you, And we have to be very careful with anxiety and OCD and things like that, interrupting our daily quality of life. But Sa is a very creative person, very intelligent person, somebody that comes up with things that are innovative. It's just a matter of being organized. Not everything that comes into our mind is worth paying attention to. And that's what the Odu of Osa, or the number 9, says within the Erindilogun.
Okay. Yeah.
What's your opinion on Yoruba New Year, and do you do the ebos prescribed from the continent? No, I do not. I think the Yoruba New Year Odu is amazing. Shout out to all the brothers there. I love looking at both of them. I remember when COVID was going on, I think Ogundabede came out here and Obedwa came out there, and they both spoke of when those 2 Odus were essential in ending the global epidemic. So we've been here before as a population. I don't do any of the ebos from La Letra del Año, guys. La Letra del Año is done by the association, and that ebo was done right there. It's been done already, apart with the drummings and all these other things. That is something done on behalf of the association for the world. What I recommend everybody do is get your reading of the year, right? So you can find out what's going on in your world, which is your Ori, right? Because you could do all that stuff from La Letra del Año and nothing works. But as long as you do the stuff that Ori prescribes, everything will be lovely. If you want to do both and you can do both, I'm not going to stop you. But bare minimum, make sure you at least get your reading done, or you're doing it both from your sign of initiation or hand of Ifa or Ifa, so that, you can deal with you. Because one thing is the world and another thing is you.
Baba knows the way.
Yay. All right, where are we? Boruboya. Anything on the Odu Odio Gunda and what the person with Ikofa came to Aye to do, especially as an Oni Shango. Someone with Odio Gunda, child of Shango, came to be initiated into Shango. because in that sign, Shango wanted their child to be Olorisha, right? That's the famous story when they did Ifa to Shango's son without his knowledge. It wasn't that Shango's son couldn't be a Babalao, it was just he wanted to be involved. And actually, Odi Ogunda has a very similar story to this one of Ofun Ogbe, where, you know, she pushed the issue of doing Ifa to the boy when, you know, Shango was like, this isn't the moment of the time. But in that sign, the child of Shango was meant to be an excellent parent, an understanding parent, to have a healthy relationship with transparency and stability. Because in that sign, Shango and Oya had a very heavy rift, and it usually happened over their children. So usually it stems from there. If we can get that coordinated, everything else is blissful. You know, good Odu.
Okay. Last couple ones.
All right.
But, before we get out of here, don't forget in the comments we have a pinned comment for the Light Within.
See you guys there.
Yeah, it's pinned in the comment, you guys. $100 off. So, here's one of the last ones here.
For our reading, do we bring down our crown? So here's the thing. Everybody has different methods, right? Some people like to get read on an annual basis with the shell, which is perfectly fine. Some people like to get read on an annual basis with the opele. It's perfectly fine. The Odu Barakoso says, technically, the Odu of the year should be pulled with the king. This is the only Odu that speaks of the Odu Abaye, or the Odu of the year for the person, personally, because it says that the other divination methods couldn't see that far. So if you really want a legitimate Odu of the year, it's best with the king. If not with the king, you know, ideally with Ifa. But that's not to say we shouldn't do the one with the Dilogun either, you know. If you want to know what your Orisha has to say to you, absolutely, you know, drop the shell and see what comes out, especially if you're going to feed it and all those things already and you have a great Oriate contact. But that does not necessarily replace the Odu that Ifa is trying to give you, because if you notice, there's not one Odu in the Erindi Logun that speaks of the Odun Tuntung, or the Odu of the year, right? But there are numerous in the Ifa corpus that do, being that the Erindi Logun is 16 Odus and the Ifa Oracle is 256. The Odu Abaye, or whether it's the letter of the year, like we're talking about now, or the Odun Tuntung, which is the personal, fresh, new Odu for the person, is in the Odu of Obetwa, when they pulled the letter of the year, and Obaradila, Obarakoso speaks of why it should be done with the king, ideally. You know, so it really is up to you and your habits, you know. I mean, if you want to speak to your guardian Orisha, that's fine. But one point I will make up is your guardian Orisha is going to speak through that Odu of Ifa as well. So bringing down the guardian Orisha on an annual basis is not necessary. And you don't have to feed it every time you divine with it either. But if you're going to feed it and you want the deity to speak, you can. But the concept that we have to feed an Orisha every time we want the Orisha to talk, that's not true. If any initiated person wants clarity on that, I can tell them why that's not necessary, but I won't express it here because it speaks of sacred materials, right? But that Orisha was already fed when it was born. So it's up to you.
You got any final words about
Oh man. Ofun Ogbe, Ofun Nara. Guys, I enjoy this process so much. The opportunity to speak about the Odu of the year is very humbling for me, because that organization means so much to me, and you know, just the gentlemen that came out of there, just absolute juggernauts of Ifa practice, you know, that were the fountains of our knowledge. This Odu, if you look it up, at first glance, it's going to worry you, because it's a very aggressive Odu. It's a very intense Odu. Think of the honey badger growling, right? But if you're able to avoid gossip, negativity, anything like that, haterade, any of that, you're going to have an amazing year. Ofun Ogbe is a very prosperous Odu. Like, this could be the best economic year for all of us. It could be the most loving year for all of us, the most stable year for all of us. But we have to avoid the low vibrational behaviors that are not going to allow Orisha Aje to bless us. There's a beautiful verse in Ofun Nara that speaks of when Aje blessed the person, right? But the only people that Aje blesses are the ones who have Iwa, because that is who she is. She is Iwa, right? Yaile Iwo, right? The mother of the land of Iwo, the mother of good character, right? So as long as we can maintain that energy will be around us, and we will prosper and enjoy life in ways we never imagined through Ifa. This is a spirituality that works and has been working since the dawn. So I expect great things this year. I've met people and initiated people with this Odu that are doing amazingly. So it's not so much what's on the paper, it's what you interpret up here. All right, guys, study hard, live righteously, and it's been a pleasure to look at the light together with all of you and see it.
See you guys later.
Boy out.
Baba knows the way.
How to do that one more time.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.